Hi there, welcome everyone to this webinar from wherever you're tuning in. We're gonna talk today about you as a partner being able to work together with Warp VR, how that works and how that is going. When firing up LinkedIn, you can see that augmented reality, virtual reality, but also the metaverse is gonna see a bright future. Everybody seems to talk about it. And it's a big industry. The industry is predicted to be around 80 billion in 2030. And it's not only entertainment or games that's going to drive this growth of these new extended reality technologies. It's also learning. So virtual reality is definitely going to change and is already changing the landscape of learning and development. I am Thijs de Vries, CEO, co-founder of Warp VR, and I have over 15 years of experience in working with big enterprises, also smaller companies, in developing learning and development scenarios in games. By using game thinking and game-based learning, I've worked with these companies in order to build engaging training scenarios. And in this last venture, Warp VR, we're doing this together with virtual reality as a technology. We work with clients, but also with partners in order to build these training scenarios. And today, we're going to talk with one of these partners about what they have built, what they have made when it comes to VR training. They've used Warp Studio, our platform, to build this VR experience for one of their clients. And they are here today with us as well. They are going to share their experience on what they've made, how they've made it, but also what it means for them and how they see the future of using VR for training, learning, and assessments. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave your comments in the chat. Also, feel free to ask any question you like. We're happy to learn from you and answer these questions throughout this webinar. But now I would like to introduce first to you our guests of today. Here on the left side, I have Joost, CEO and co-founder of SkillFull Serious Games, one of our partners. And on the other side, we have Mark Boele, founder of Xiel. Gentlemen, great that you're here. Looking forward to talk about more about VR experiences, what you guys have built, what you've created, and what your challenges are and opportunities. So Joost, if you can go ahead, tell me a little bit who you are and what SkillFull Serious Games is.
Yeah, SkillFull. We build games, interactive scenarios that predict and enhance workplace behavior. It's quite a mouthful, but what we do is we use gaming technology to train and learn people how they can become more effective in their working life. For example, we use skills like leadership, communication, collaboration, all kind of 21st century skills that are difficult to train via e-learning and other more simple variants of training. So we take an innovative approach. We are a creative company. We're based in Rotterdam. We do a lot of research together with universities in the Netherlands, but also in Germany. So we try to be evidence-based. So what we produce should make sense. And we only sell the products that we know that make sense. So that's about us. It started 2019 when COVID hit. We really got into VR, and from then on, start building on your platform.
Cool, perfect. We're going to talk a little bit more about how you're using Warp VR as a platform and exactly what you've built. But let's first go to Mark. Same question to you. Can you briefly introduce yourself and Xiel, of course?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction and also the welcome to join this webinar. I'm very excited. It's my first webinar, so I'm very curious if everything looks good on camera and if it sounds the right way. It should. A short correction on your introduction. I am indeed one of the founders of Xiel, but also let's not forget the partner we founded Xiel with in 2016. That's our current partner, Pico. Xiel was founded in 2016 by the both of us, and we have a consultancy firm that is engaged in assessments, leadership development, and also topics where governance and leadership mix and cross paths. We are the core of the company. PTL is an economist and I'm an occupational psychologist. And we have lots of consultants surrounding us, people that we have almost blind faith in, as you can say. And customers are very broad from several industries. We have like pharmaceutical companies, also banking and insurance, and also healthcare. So it's a wide range. And I think that we can also say that Xiel is quite innovative. That's why we ended up with Warp, VR, and also SkillFull.
Thanks so much, Mark. Great to hear. Indeed, you're trying to be really innovative when it comes to assessments. Can you tell me a little bit more when you first encountered VR and had the feeling that this was a technology that you could use for assessments?
Yes, I think so. If my memory doesn't let me down, I think it was about a year ago where we encountered Joost, and maybe Joost can tell us later exactly where that was. But to cut a long story short, we invited Joost in our office, and where we are at this moment also. And he put on VR glasses, and I was embedded in a new world, so to speak. And I think that's the experience that everyone has when they put on VR glasses for the first time. And I can imagine, or I remember that there was a scene in which you had to choose from several scenarios, and I was really submerged in those scenarios. And I remember, I don't know, excuse my French, but pissing off someone in that scenario. And then that person in the scenario approached me, and it really felt like, okay, what can I do now? Should I fight, or should I run, or whatever should I do? But you don't know exactly where you are. You really have the feeling that you are in the setting.
And did you immediately had the idea that this could work for assessment?
Yes.
Was that directly?
Yes, it was a direct combination in thoughts. What the main problem in assessments is that it's mostly one-on-one. And within a role play, for example, you can encounter someone with pressure. You can measure someone's influential repertoire, but it's very difficult how to predict if someone is in front of a group, and especially a group that disagrees with you. So by creating a VR environment where you put someone in front of a group and not having the most popular voice or statement, then you really see someone acting under pressure.
So
very cool.
Yeah, so you can get really close to that realistic situation. That's kind of what you mean, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect. So SkillFull has created together with you this initial VR assessment.
Right.
Can you share a little bit about the VR assessment? What happens in the experience, and why is it important that people experience exactly that?
Yes, of course. I have to say that it has two reasons why we engage in VR. Because one, we think it has the future. And secondly, we are curious people. We are always looking for new developments and innovations. And this is one that crossed our path. In the VR assessment, we believe, as far as we know, it's the first in the Netherlands. And that's also a claim, of course, that we like to do over here. But what we created is an immersive experience for candidates that would normally not be when encountering an online assessment. I mean, we created this following the COVID situation, where people were engaged in online assessments from their homes. And as you have seen, we have a really nice office, Villa Marhezen, and I think that adds to the experience when you're here. So what we try to do is to bring that experience, that feeling of our office towards the candidate that is in their homes. So what we do, the process is as follows. We send the VR glasses towards the candidate in a nice box, etc. So they can keep it. And as soon as they have installed the VR on their phones, they enter our office, basically. They are welcomed by Amber, our host, and they really are able to know everything from the history of this building. They can look in every room as if they are actually here. And that's also what we hear back from people, that it's really immersive. They really have the feeling that they are not at home anymore. They're really entering another world.
So you're bringing the situation to the people instead of the people to the situation, the office in this case. Yeah. Thanks so much. Great to hear about the VR experience. And obviously, we are super curious as well on the process of creation. And therefore, I have to look at you, Joost. Can you take us through that process all the way from beginning to the fact that the VR experience was there?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. Yeah, so encountering this Villa Marhezen is a unique experience. So I was invited here at the office of Xiel, and I encountered these rooms. And we already thought, okay, this is such a unique location that really asks for VR. So at that time, we had a quite good idea what we wanted to build. But the cool thing was that we used 360 photos to have the scenes already shot. So we used stills. And because of Warp having such a good flowchart manager in the online environment, we were already able to create the scenario from A to Z in the beginning, but then only with stills. And that really helped us together with all stakeholders to come to a conclusion, yes, this is how we want it, this is how it should be like. And I remember that we were already with our phones playing through the scenario in test mode within a week or so. Yep. So that really accelerated the idea generation, the generative part of product creation. And that for us is such a cool tool to use. I've designed a lot of games, and it's always a lot of work in having these branching scenarios, having visualized in your mind. And the flowchart tool in Warp helped us. And well, we were testing it. And from then on, it was a production. So the first fuzzy front end was done, and from there on, we could focus on the production.
So it was also really almost delivering something, retrieving feedback, and then continuing on making it better.
Exactly. I remember Xiel sharing it with people and already having feedback around specific scenes or stages in the scenario that might work well or should be done better. But the main focus, of course, was kept on the purpose of it. So having SSCs being onboarded on the assessment remotely in such a way that is interactive and exciting, fun to do. So that fun layer, that came later. So there's a lot of little things within the scenario that engage people, interact with this environment in a cool way. So there are light switches you can use. You use the front doorbell to ring, otherwise you can't even enter the building. And not to forget the cellars, because there are cellars in this unique location as well, where we just gave Amber, the host, a flashlight, and using a flashlight to walk around. So yeah, it's that fun part that was very easily layered over the wireframe that was already there, that we already agreed upon. This would be the structure of the game.
Perfect. Yeah, I've seen the cellars indeed, and it's quite impressive, I have to say. So I think you did a good job there.
Thanks.
Just curious, from your background also as a game, designer, creator, what could you use as your skill set when creating these VR experiences?
It is. It's that iterative phase in the beginning that really was supported by the structure of the product of Warp, and that really helped us in that stage. Because of the flexibility of rearranging your scenes, you can redesign and rewrite your scenario in such a way that is appealing. A thing we also did is that we created loops within the scenario. So therefore, if one would return to a room, then not the same scene would start over again. So there's this continuously flow that is monitored within the scenario. That was quite cool to use as a designer. So we did a great job, I would say.
Cool, very, very cool. Thanks, Joost, for sharing this. And I'm also curious which challenges or maybe obstacles you encountered while creating this VR assessment. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. One of the challenges that I would think about now is the multi-language purpose we had. So we wanted to, because of the international partners of Xiel and the customers that they delivered their products to, we needed both English and Dutch language. So therefore we had double takes of all scenes, which is also for a production day quite challenging. But there was also a thing that we needed to find an actor that was bilingual because of the subtitles that don't work quite well in VR. For missing the depth layer, subtitles aren't very useful. So we found Amber, and that was quite cool. That from the network of Mark and Xiel, there was Amber that could do both takes, at the same shot. So that was we tackled that as for that challenge. And one other challenge that I think of is the challenge of bringing the VR to the end user, the SSCs, as we call them, or the learners. It's what is a good name? What do you use, Mark?
Sometimes they call themselves, or maybe they experience themselves as victims of
assessment. Well, that's quite a harsh way of. Okay. The other challenge that I think about is the challenge of bringing the end product to the end user. Because VR is such a new technology, not everybody is used to encountering, using this device and encountering this environment for the first time. So what we did, the idea that we got is that what if we invite people a week before to this location via the scenario and have a look around. Just have a look around the house and try to explore what's there possible. And at that time, when we started with that idea, we also came up with the idea that Amber opens the door, but she kindly, sends you home or asks you to take a look in the garden because you're too early for your appointment. So in that way, we integrated the pre-boarding of this VR tool in the scenario itself, which is quite effective for users to start their first VR experience.
I see. So could you almost see these as levels, when you're looking at kind of games, the pre-boarding being the first level, and then...
I like that. I like that metaphor. Indeed, it's a level, and there are more levels that we are wanting to build. For example, a library with VR colleges, something like that, that you can even add on top of the first experience of doing your assessment, and from then on learning more from experts in the same virtual reality environment.
Yeah, so you can keep on building on top of what you've created and add more levels, so to say.
Like in real life, this is the house,
Exactly.
the office of Xiel, and you can return and have a more coached or different focus on your interaction.
Yes. So just I'm wondering, because you're sharing kind of Amber, being kind of the host and talking, obviously, what happens in that scenario, and really guides you as an SSC or a learner throughout the experience. How important is storytelling when it comes to VR? Like, is that, let's say, a match made in heaven? How do you see the importance of stories and storytelling in VR?
Yeah, it is. It is a match made in heaven, if you ask me. It is. VR asks for a story. Otherwise, if you want to use soft skills like we do and train people on behaviors that relate to the workplace, you do need to have a story and a scenario that is close to their own context and to their living world, so that they can understand what they are doing. And of course, having this environment, this house available, made the story itself. There are so many stories from history of this environment that Mark can tell about, that are exciting to learn about. It's a story itself.
Yeah.
And we were able to tell that story in VR.
Great. Mark, I'm super curious about the feedback of the learners. Like, how do they experience this VR assessment? We've heard about the narrative, we've heard about the process of creation, but obviously what people think of it and how they experience it, that's most important, I would say. So can you share a little bit about what participants, learners, assessors feel about this?
Sure. Of course, that was a gamble for us as well. Of course, when you start something new that's not available in this market, you don't know, although you're very enthusiastic about it yourself, you don't know how it will be perceived in the end. A short correction, I called them victims before. That's maybe how some people feel being invited for an assessment, like going for a dental extraction at your dentist. But that's the fun element Joost was talking about also. We try to create a short fun element also. I think the trick in our business is, at the end of the day, we have to get a picture of someone with qualities and areas of development. And the process in which you do it is very crucial for the acceptance of a candidate. So the way we approach people, the way we describe things is very crucial in their experience. And of course, we had a few tryouts. We sent people a box with the VR glasses, and the reactions we got was, in one word, positive. People were really, even the not so tech-savvy people, were able to install it very easily, to find the scenario, and when they had the glasses on, they were submerged in this villa. Many people said, "Well, I showed my wife and I showed my boss what I got from you." So not only the participants were very enthusiastic, but also the customers that work for us. And there's a buzz going around that people, and especially people that were in Villa Marhezen for an assessment before we had the VR experience, they look through the VR glasses to see where they were, before that. So there is a new year before VR and after VR when it comes to assessment.
Thanks for sharing, and I'm super interested as well in how you see the future when it comes to VR assessments. You've now started with this initial VR assessment. You get super positive feedback from learners.
Exactly.
Where do you see this going?
Well, it's always difficult to look in the future, of course, but my opinion is that VR has the future. I think that you need to have a technology like this when you assess and develop people. And what we are thinking about is to lengthen the storyline. Joost was already talking about you need a storyline. I think that technology requires a storyline. What we are also engaging in from assessment is mainly an individual experience. What we also do is guiding leadership teams, of course, during their development and creating positive dynamics as far as possible to help them identify when the dynamics are not that positive anymore. And what we are trying to do in the leadership journey is every leader needs a tailor-made approach. So for every leader, we try to make, you already mentioned, colleges in a VR setting about several topics. Think about stakeholder management, or think about governance topics, or how to handle pressure, etc. So, and we are trying to give that college experience also a twist with a VR approach.
So looking into kind of expanding almost that VR library and making sure that the right candidates get the right VR assessments.
Exactly. So to make it tailor-made.
Exactly, yeah. Perfect, thanks.
You're welcome.
So kind of maybe the same question to you, Joost, because I'm super curious as well, from a SkillFull perspective, where you think this technology is going and how often you can see using, VR using for your clients.
Yeah, to build upon Mark's idea in the future to lengthen the experience and the story from a user perspective, we at SkillFull are very interested in the measuring part. For example, what we do in our 2D games, we always use personality as a model to kind of predict in what way you would behave in real life. And when adding the third dimension in VR, because you are so immersed, it's quite easy to come up with scenarios that aren't easily modeled in the real world, to put people under pressure. And because you're so close to their skin and to their personality, you see the behavior that you could expect in real life. And for us at SkillFull, that is like the holy grail. If you can measure within VR how one would react in real life, then of course, you can make use of that in lots of situations, and leadership maybe the most.
Can almost imagine it's a real primary response, when people are getting indeed under pressure, and what do you need to answer, and then that first initial thought comes up, and they answer. Yeah,
and there comes a reaction to it. So it's not just what would I do, but it's first person. You are in control, and your reaction triggers the feedback that you get, and it's completely different compared to an interview or a moment where you talk about yourself, how you would react in a situation. The bright side. And this goes, are you going to fight or flight? What are you going to do under stress? That is, of course, in VR, in safety situations, always an issue, but even also in HR. What do you do when you are fatigued, stressed, and colleagues come to you and ask you for things that you don't want to? Or as a manager, if you have control and you use that control unwisely, how do you learn that? So maybe lastly to say that VR is the environment for safe learning and experimenting and getting close to yourself without having all the accidents that can happen in real life.
Indeed, and both for soft skills as safety, actually.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I can see as well there the link with games. That safe environment to learn you just mentioned. Eventually, you should be able to make mistakes, and through those mistakes, learn about the consequences that you face. So,
yeah, exactly.
And whenever you feel it's a safe environment to learn, you can actually learn and progress. Therefore,
yeah. Learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
Great, thanks. We did actually got a few questions throughout this webinar. One actually for you, Mark, because you've shared and told about the VR assessment. I think it got people very curious about the VR experience. Where can they go? What can they do if they want to experience it themselves?
That's actually pretty cool, and also what we aimed for, of course, to trigger curiosity. So if you are interested in experiencing or seeing the scenario, please visit our website. We have the contact details of Peter Xiel and myself, of course, on the website.
Can you just share the URL of the website? So
3 W's, I think, at front, then a dot, xiel.nl.
Perfect.
Then you can find it. So you can contact me, or you can contact Peter Xiel, or if you're more comfortable by using email, send an email through info@xiel.nl, and then you can receive a demo link to, experience what we bragged about over here.
Great. Well, I think you can experience quite a full inbox after this.
Let's hope so. Thanks.
Then another question that we got, I think that might be more relevant for you, Joost, to answer. It's a question about data. I think that question is also answered because of your remarks about player behavior. Where do you see data in this context? Like, how important is data, player data, whenever people are in these VR assessments or in these VR experiences?
I think it depends on the purpose of the VR product. We use VR mainly for advising and predicting behavior in real life. And data is then very essential. You should be aware of patterns, paths that people choose within the environment. So we do research together with the Erasmus University, for example, on the topic that I discussed or mentioned before on stress. So how do people react under stress? And you should be able to use that data in your analysis. I hope in the future that we can use some biofeedback data as well in there. So we see people sweat like in the VR environment, but can you make that objective? And can you use that data as well in your analysis? I saw your heart rate going up.
Exactly.
Were you were aware of that? And that's data that's even more powerful than just the choice that someone makes, of course. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, one innovation with the recent headsets that have been launched is the fact that they have eye tracking and face tracking. Could imagine that's going to be part of that data set in order to kind of analyze how people feel, how they are during that VR experience.
Happy to start a project together.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Absolutely. I agree. I think we kind of came to the end of this interview part of the webinar, and I would like to thank you, Joost, Mark, you as well. Terrific that you guys have been here. It was a great conversation on VR assessments, the use of Warp Studio also in that process, but also how you see the future of using VR for learning and assessments. I'm looking to a lot of great opportunities in the future to work together even more. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you for the invitation. Great being here.
Thank you all for joining in this interview together with SkillFull and Xiel. And just as SkillFull, you can also partner with us in order to create immersive learning experiences for our clients. And we roughly see two options in order to partner with us. First one, you can create these bespoke immersive learning scenarios for your clients. Make sure to use your own creative services, your script writing skills, your e-learning skills, or maybe your filming skills on top of our platform in order to build these immersive learning experiences. But you could also create your own IP, creating VR training scenarios which can be sold to many clients for the price that you like. Either way, in both cases, you could use Warp Studio in order to create these VR experiences. And we're looking forward to welcoming you as a partner. And if you want to, please go to our website, warpvr.com/partners, and apply. We will contact you as soon as possible, take you through our Partner Success Program, where you can get a free subscription to the Warp Studio platform in order to try, but also to demo to potential clients. And if needed, we will definitely assist with helping you with any documentation you require in order to get your clients on board. So we're happy to welcome you to Warp Studio. Again, go to warpvr.com/partners, and we'll see you there. Thanks everyone for watching this webinar. We truly hope you liked it and hope to see you again soon.